10 Depictions of Hell in Video Games by Stuart Schlomach.
Number 10. Spawn Armageddon. Spawn made for a great comic franchise, equally great animated series, a bad movie, and a boring game. Hence it being the lowest on the list. The hell landscape seems pretty uninspired, with rock platforms floating over lava and screaming in the background. But the demonic enemies are pretty cool. You have enemies that are just giant claws, some flying bat things, and sexy goat ladies, enemies called meat puppets, and some giant Jabba the Hutt looking motherfuckers. Pretty generic feeling all around for the most part, but what more do you need anyway? Actually, it turns out a lot more. Number 9. Ghost Rider. You would think that since it's the first level in the game, they would do their best to make it memorable. But, sadly, this was not the case in the Ghost Rider game. Like Spawn Armageddon, the Ghost Rider game was mostly a bland experience. The way hell is depicted in this game is only slightly better and ranked a little higher because it isn't full of platforming. However, it is still mostly a bland environment with typical stone walls and meat hooks hanging from the ceilings, and lava flows all over the place. The image that comes to mind is Hellraiser meets Devil May Cry. Number 8. Minecraft. To be fair, it's not called Hell, but rather the Nether. When you first arrive through the Nether portal that you built from obsidian, you see a lot of fire and lava. That's about it, really. The landscape has a lot of drop-off points, so you have to be careful where you walk. If you're brave enough to explore, you can eventually find a fortress that will be populated with zombie pig hybrids, flying fire monsters called blazes, and a giant octopus-like monsters called ghasts populate the air wherever you go. You are certainly in an alien place that feels very unsafe, and all you can hope for is to be able to make it back to your portal to go home before you either run out of food, fall to your death in the lake of lava below, or are butchered by the zombie pigmen. Number 7. Doom, 1993. The 1993 game Doom was a very influential game when it came out. A technological and gameplay masterpiece, it influenced games and gamers everywhere. But it also sparked a lot of outrage due to its violence and depictions of hell. Given the dated graphics, it's sometimes difficult to think of your environment as being hell, but some areas are unmistakably hell. The most hellish aspect of these games, however, is the maze-like level design. You can easily get lost, and you start to feel like Theseus trying to kill the Minotaur. The enemy design for the imps and zombies is pretty bland and generic, but then you get to enemies like the Revenant, Archvile, and the Mancubus that show up to rape you and let you know, "Hey jackass, you're in hell now, and you're my bitch." Other enemies like the Cacodemon and Pain Elemental are enemies that are very hellish in appearance, but are ripped straight from Dungeons & Dragons. Number 6. Doom 64. Doom 64 one-upped the original Dooms when it comes to creepiness. Whether you're on Mars or in Hell, you are thoroughly creeped out. You always feel like something is behind you, watching. The monster designs have been revamped and made to be terrifying, making the game amazingly memorable as one of the scariest FPSs I've ever played, despite the incredibly dated graphics. Number 5. Saints Row Gat Outta Hell. How do you one-up your last game that contained superhero powers? Replace the glide ability with straight-up flying, but otherwise make the same game but in hell. Upon arrival, you find that a former foe has built a corporate empire and kept himself from being tortured. The broken down and dilapidated buildings, coupled with the shades endlessly wandering the streets, works for making a convincing hell, as long as you ignore the cars and billboards. Number 4. Painkiller Series. The Painkiller franchise is one of my favorite FPS series, because not only is it a throwback to classic games like Doom and Quake, but also because it has one of my favorite depictions of hell. The environments are so varied that no matter what you like, the game has something for you. You'll get graveyards, cathedrals, narrow corridors, war-torn battlefields reminiscent of World War II. You know how variety is the spice of life? Well, these are the most lively depictions of hell you're going to find. Even carnivals, opera houses, and sky environments make an appearance. The art style fits these environments so perfectly, and the lighting most of the time is so good that you really feel like you're in hell. Number 3. Doom 2016. Is it a little unfair that the Doom franchise has 3 spots on this list? Maybe a little. But is it fair that Doom is one of the most popular games of all time? Quite possibly. But this hell truly felt like hell more than the other Dooms on this list. The demons are great, but looking out upon the endless landscape makes you feel truly isolated. And you are fighting the terrain as well as the demons. One misstep is all it takes to fall to your death. The massive skulls, puddles of blood, blood plumbing, and gothic dungeon architecture all help you feel like hell is real and you're in it. Number 2. Shadows of the Damned. With Suda 5-1, Shinji Mikami, and Akira Yamaoka, you knew this was at least going to be weird, even if it wasn't very good. The lighting and art design were reminiscent of Mardi Gras, and accompanying music and sound effects make this hell the most heart-pumping on the list, only because it made you feel like you were going mad as you played. Before I get to number 1, here are a few honorable mentions. The Darkness 2. Depending on which version of the story you choose to go with, hell in The Darkness 2 is pretty bland. True hell is just a very linear hallway with some demon encounters sprinkled in. The more interesting version is when you spend the entire time in the hospital, encountering old enemies and allies. Netherrealm, the Mortal Kombat series. Having never actually played Mortal Kombat, I can't really say that much about it. Hades, God of War. A massive pain in the ass due to needless, stupid platforming and balance walking. The only reason it's an honorable mention and not truly on the list, however, is because the realm of Hades is where everybody goes when they die, not just bad people. So it's hell-ish, but not strictly hell. And number 1, Dantes Inferno. Whether you loved the game or hated it, Dantes Inferno, based on the poem by Dante Alighieri, is what most of us think of when we think of hell, consisting of 9 circles, with each circle representing a different sin. This depiction of hell has everything: rivers of blood, fire, darkness, millions of tortured souls, twisted monsters and demons, and at the bottom you have the frozen lake Cocytus made of Lucifer's tears. There are souls submerged in molten gold for being greedy, swimming in a river of boiling blood for violence, burning forever in stone boxes for heresy, and the tortures go on and on. Of all the hells on this list, this one earns the number 1 spot.